I'm back here on my little live sanding and polishing of a ring. So this is actually a wedding ring. It's quite coarsely sanded at the moment. I started a little live 5 seconds ago, which is just a trial, and it ended up posting to YouTube. So there you go, that was me having a test run. And now we're on it. So yeah, I like to, with wider rings, particularly ones that have a bit of a curve to them. This one's a half round ring. I actually like to sand them by hand with pieces of sanding paper as opposed to the sanding sticks, because I find that the contours work better against your thumb rather than a stick. So for those of you who don't know, a sanding stick is essentially a piece of timber that is either rectangular or square, or it can be round for inside, and you get your sheet of abrasive paper and score the ends and turn and roll and make a sanding stick. And I should do a little YouTube demonstration on that, because there's a little bit of a you've got them, and but I don't have any at the moment, so I'll come back to that one. So right now, the grades that I'm working through with the sanding are from 400 up to 1500. So essentially, if you're new to sanding, the smaller the number, the coarser the grade. So you'll start with the coarser ones first. So 400 is the coarsest that I will generally use. And then I'll work my way up. So after 400, I have 600. And I'm just really rubbing in there and making sure that I'm getting all of that surface nicely broken down. And as you work your way through the sandpaper grades, what you'll see is a little bit of a shine will start to emerge. So that's already got a bit of a dull kind of matte glow. I would call that a glow. And I'm just working my way around. I do one full course. So one full course is literally one full round of the surface when we're talking about a ring. It's really good to be meticulous with your sanding, particularly if you are working with sterling silver, because it can develop fire scale, which is when the copper oxide rises to the surface when you've heated the metal, whether through annealing or doing the soldering. So if you work with argentium, you don't have that problem. Argentium is not something I'm familiar with. I'm a sterling silver girl, and sterling is essentially 92.5% silver, pure silver, and then the rest is copper. So, okay, we've done 600. So now we're going to move up to the next grade, which is 800. So again, just doing the same thing, working my way around, really pressing nice and firmly with the thumb and going over that contour. So the other thing that's really nice about hand sanding is you are working the ring, and your energy is working the ring, and as a maker or as a crafts person, you're combining with the piece of jewellery by using your hands. If you were just going straight onto machines, you'd miss that step of engagement, and I feel it does make a difference. I do feel that hand sanding adds an extra softness to the ring, particularly around the edges, and it's really important that a ring is, particularly a wedding ring, is going to feel nice and comfortable and sit well on the finger without any sharp edges. So I'm a fan of hand sanding all the way, and I find sanding is actually quite meditative. So it's a nice little chilled out thing to do on an afternoon, which is the time of day it is over here. So 1,000. We're almost through our grades here now. 4, 6. What have I got? I've got 1,200 is my last one. So I'm on the second last grade. If I had 1,500 handy, I'd probably use that as well, but it's not super necessary. And you can actually see the shine is starting to pick up a bit more, and the whole feeling and shape of the ring is starting to emerge. It's starting to look less like a piece of metal and more like a piece of jewellery, which is what you want. Excuse my hat, by the way. I walked down in the sun, the hot sun, and I had my hat on. I totally wasn't even planning on doing a live, but then I had this little project to finish, so I thought, oh, I may as well do that, make the most of the moment. I'm still getting used to this whole live and YouTube and tutorials thing, but I really want to have a good crack at it because I feel like it's really important to share the craft, particularly right now when people have more time to learn new things. So we will be getting into it more over the coming weeks. And then finally, so this is looking a bit like this now. 1200 is our final grey. Yeah, you can really see it starts to pick up a bit more shine once you get past that 1000 grit mark. Sandpaper can last for ages. It is wet and dry, so you can wet the metal and use it that way as well. I tend to just end up using it dry though, mostly, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm planing flat, plain items, I'll get a larger piece of sandpaper and get the piece that I'm sanding, dip it in a little jar of water and then scrape it along. And that's to get a really nice flat high shine finish. But with rings, I don't tend to worry too much about that. We're nearly there, we're nearly ready for polishing. So I'm going to pop over here. I just want to check this out. Actually, I'll need to bring you with me, so bear with me. Now, this guy is going to make some noise. So this is my polishing lathe, essentially. It has 2 mops on it, so you can only see one at the moment, but there are 2. So there's the other one there. And one is essentially a cut and the other is a polish, and in between you do need to wash the compound off the ring because you don't want to cross-contaminate your mops. So in the old days it was Tripoli and Rouge, and Tripoli would be on a very hard mop to provide extra friction, and that would be a final cut. Then you'd wash the Tripoli off with heavy-duty detergent, or I have an ultrasonic, so I throw it in the ultrasonic, and then you'd move on to your polish, which would be the Rouge. But I have this new system, and it's sort of like a polish and a fine polish, and that seems to work just fine. So I'm going to do the first stage, and I've got a little hook that I've made out of a piece of steel, and that's really handy to have if you just hold your ring like this. You could use steel, you could use copper, brass, whatever you have, some little piece of metal. Steel is good because it's a heat sink, and when you start working with a rotary machine, the movement will generate energy, which will generate heat. So you will end up finding that the ring gets hot, and you don't want to drop it and then have to go find it, and also get marring from dropping the ring on concrete, which is what I have down here at the moment. So having something to hold the ring with is really handy. So mind the noise. So what I'm doing here is I'm holding I should actually bring this sideways, I think that would be better. Okay, so I'm holding the ring and pushing down, but using the bottom of the wheel. You don't want to be polishing from up here, you have less control. You want to be polishing from underneath. I'm pushing right up into the mop. This is a polishing mop. Okay. So we're going to just keep doing that until we've done one full course. Always turn your polishing lathe off before you do too much moving around, because you don't want to get yourself caught up. The other safety thing is you don't want anything hanging, no scarves or loose clothing, because that can get caught up in the reps, and that's dangerous. So this is now pre-polished. I'm going to pop it in my ultrasonic and just give that a little clean, and then we're going to come over and we'll do the final polish after that. So this wheel over here. So that's good. I think that'll be enough. So essentially I'm just washing off the polishing compound from the previous mop so that we don't muddy the this grade of polish with the previous one. Okay, so back to it. Get my little steel shepherd's hook. I might also show you how to charge up the wheel. So the polishing compound, which will come in a wax stick, just hold it at the bottom, rub it over a bit. You'll see the wheel will change colour. It'll go from black to whatever colour the compound is, so you know you're ready then. And as you press into it, it'll actually start to go